What's up guys, my name is Josh and welcome to a first impressions video of the Edition XX, a Hyphaman Massdrop collaboration, the Hyphaman Ananda, the Brainwavz. Oddly enough, this is a headphone that I didn't really anticipate showing up on the channel, but I'm glad it's here. And I think it's the Generation 2, although I really want to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's the Generation 2 because it has the detachable cables, but the Beyerdynamic T1. And this is going to be the first impressions video of all of these rather than separating it all out. Now, before we get into that, a couple quick, serious moments with you guys here. I did a poll about on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon, basically asking whether or not you guys like the longer videos or the shorter videos. And all across all platforms, the vast majority of the people voted for longer videos. So that's the direction that the channel is going to be taking. More in-depth, longer videos. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it to where it doesn't feel like you're watching like a 10 to 15 minute video. I really want to keep it flowing and keep it easy. Maybe do bring back the timestamps that I was using a while ago so you guys can just skip around. Those videos take a long time to make. And you guys know the quality and the amount of B-roll that I really try and keep in those videos. And believe it or not, like a 10-minute video takes about half the time a 15-minute video takes to shoot and edit for. You know, anybody who edits video, kind of the longer your sequence gets, the more complex, the harder it is on your system. And luckily I am upgrading my computer finally. I've been rocking the same computer for a while. Editing on it is a nightmare. But you know, at the end of the day, it takes a long time to make those videos, and if that's what everybody wants, that's what I'll do. But I really do want to, you know, promote my Patreon here because those videos are really a lot of work and they are very, very time consuming to make. And I would like to keep up the consistency with how I make them, but you know, that's just a lot more time for me to do that. It almost doubles my time. So I'd appreciate your guys' support on Patreon for, you know, $5 a month, basically a cup of coffee. You get access to all of my reviews early. And right now, Patreon only content, I'm thinking about maybe a podcast with me and my girlfriend once a month or something like that. And yard sales, things like that will be going up on Patreon exclusively in the near future, probably a month or two, I think is probably what we're looking at right now. Okay, so now that that's over, let's talk headphones, guys. So I think the first one we're gonna talk about is the one that, you know, it's kind of the oddball out here for some reason. I don't know why. It's just came out of left field. I don't know anybody who is anticipating this. Nobody's really talking about this, but it's a pretty solid little headphone, which is the Brainwavz Alara. Now, the initial thing that I noticed, like when you very first pick this up, when you look at it in photos and pictures, this whole system looks like plastic. It just looks like one plastic headphone. And parts of it are, like the headphone bracket and the headphone extension on themselves, which I have a knit band on, which I'll explain in just a second. But this part, the actual ear cup, it's all metal. It's like this solid piece of metal, and it feels very, well, solid. Then you have these, the hybrid pads that they have, which are kind of a pleather or leather on the outside, microfiber on the inside part that touches your actual head. And then on the very inside ring, they have the perforated leather. Pretty comfortable pads. They're kind of small. I thought that Brainwavz would have, although, you know, if anybody's going to have analytics on what size headphones or what size ear pads people actually use, it's going to be Brainwavz. But I kind of figured they would have gone a little bit bigger, but they didn't. So that's going to be a point of the review. Now, other points on the actual fit of this, which is actually the most concerning part for me. And the reason why this knit headband cap is on here is because in its most small headphone setting, on both sides, this headphone does not actually fit my head. It is too big, and it weighs down on the top of my ears a little bit when I'm wearing it. And this is kind of weird. I feel like I have a medium-sized headphone. I feel like, or a medium-sized head. I wear a medium-sized hat. When headphones arrive, I usually set them on the medium extension arm for almost every single headphone. But the knit headphone headband cap here, which kind of clips on just like that, and I will leave an Amazon link where you can actually check this out. They're pretty cool. I think they're like $10 for two, $10 for one, but they're really comfortable. If you have an uncomfortable headband, instead of replacing all the components, this is a really good option as long as you're willing to have it look like it's wearing kind of a sweater. But that little sweater adds a little bit of extra height, and that brings it just up to the perfect level on the lowest setting. Now I'm not gonna knock it a whole lot for that in the review, but that is going to be a point where I'm like, look, if you got a smaller than medium head, this ain't gonna work for you at all. I guess depending on where your ears sit, but I am gonna draw some pretty cautious statements against it. Now, sound-wise, they sound pretty solid. I haven't dug in too deep because I just got them, I think, yesterday or the day before. You know, it's enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable, pleasing sound signature. And thank you very much, Anthony, for sending out the Alara and the Beyerdynamic T1s. Okay, so the Edition XX sent out by Rob, a patron of mine from Hawaii. Thank you very much for sending this out, Rob. First thing we gotta talk about is the build and HIFIMAN's ever-changing headband status. They cannot seem to decide on a headphone band. But luckily for me, I actually prefer this headband style the most. It's the same one that's shared on the 4XX and the old school HIFIMANs. For my head shape and size, I love it. It actually fits really, really well for me. It's not gonna fit everybody though. It will be a little bit too big for certain people. Headphone cap, of course. And it's probably gonna be a little bit too narrow side to side to be comfortable for other people too. I know a lot of people don't like these. Me personally, I do really like them, but that's just me. Now, another part is that there's actually like the ear brackets are metal, and this headband actually weighs a bit more and has a little bit more clamp pressure. So when you pick this up, it actually feels more solid than the Arya and the Ananda. Like you pick it up and it's got more heft to it, and it feels a little bit better put together actually, even though it's coming in at only $600 as opposed to $800, and the Arya coming in at $1,600. Now real quick, I'm kind of trying to figure out what to do with this thing. And what I mean by that is, like, of course I'm going to be doing this standard review of it, right? That's just a given. But I also want to do a couple comparisons with it. And I was thinking about initially comparing it to a headphone that I have here, the LCD2C, because they're similar price ranges. I thought the Ananda was coming in at $1,000, but I checked on Amazon and it's only like $800. And so I'm like, well, maybe I should compare the Ananda and the LCD2C, but then sound-wise, the Edition XX and the LCD2C are more similar. So maybe I'll compare all three. I don't know. The other comparison I do have planned though is kind of a, not really a direct head-to-head, more of a step up in, you know, seeing whether or not the progression is worth it and which headphones are a better value. Is going to be the Edition XX versus the Ananda versus the Arya, which my friend Israel kindly lent back to me after my review, so I could do that comparison. So sound-wise on the Edition XX, it's actually kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting it to be as thumpy as it is. It doesn't have like a you know, an argon level of like wallop in the bass or anything like that, but it does have a fair bit of body and presence and impact behind the bass response. And that's why it reminded me, the first headphone that I thought of, even though I had the Arya, I was like, I want to know how close this is to the Arya, because the Arya is the best for me. And then the first headphone on the first song that I thought of was the LCD2C. And they're not exact. I'm not saying that it's an LCD2 replacement or that it can beat the LCD2C. I don't know. I'd really have to sit down and do the comparison. But I am saying that it is kind of a more warmer, more impactful sound signature. The treble wasn't, especially compared to the Ananda, the treble's not very forward. The Ananda is certainly a more treble forward planar coming out of HIFIMAN. One thing I did notice about this, and it's weird because these sound signatures almost flip-flop. Like I feel like the Edition XX is more bass and mid-range heavy, and this is more upper mid-range and treble focused and doesn't really have a ton of bass response. I mean, it's got a fair bit, but it's not, you know, dry in there, but it does, you know, it's not quite as luscious as the Edition XX, but it does have kind of that sweetness, especially for string instruments. It was just amazing. Gaming on the, actually gaming on all of these was awesome. All of the HIFIMANs of this style. But I feel like gaming had the fun aspect on the Edition XX, but had the positional accuracy aspect on the Ananda. Both of these headphones are pretty good. I don't think I'm in love with the Ananda yet. There's a few songs that I want to listen to that might change my mind on that. But you know, I think it's going to be one of those where it's like, it's good. There's just better headphones at the price, especially considering the build. And I am not a huge, like, I gotta be honest, Hyphaman, I'm not a huge fan of this headband for two reasons. You know, you have the same headband, like I always complain, on your lower end headphones. Like, you've got it on the Sandara, and you also have it on the Jade and a few other headphones. And it just doesn't really feel like a premium headphone. Like, it doesn't feel like an $800 headphone when I pick this up. I mean, everything on the outside here is plastic. It's very lightweight. And the big aspect to this headphone is that on my head, it fits okay. And maybe on most other people's heads, it fits okay too. But I would have preferred a little bit of articulation capability for the extra ear brackets so they could swivel. The Edition XX does swivel a little bit. And then the Arya, which I don't feel like reaching for, but it's over there. The Arya swivels completely. You can just rotate and rotate and rotate all day long. Okay, so I think that brings us into the final headphone here. And that is going to be the Beyerdynamic T1. Okay, so first off, I think my tastes are somewhat evolving. Now, I don't know if it's better or worse. I am starting to, I will say, like, over time, I've just noticed this higher respect for treble. That being said, this is a very bright headphone. It actually kind of reminds me quite a bit of the HD 800 in some pretty interesting ways. But more about this headphone. This is kind of a flagship headphone that, I think back in the day it was about $1,000. I think now it's about $600. So I'd be interested to see if I can get my hands on a DT1990 to compare against this, because they're going to be similar price tags for open-backed headphones. But you know, the interesting thing is that, you know, for a flagship headphone, when this was more of a flagship headphone in price, when, you know, $1,000 headphones were crazy, now it's like $3,000 and $4,000 is crazy. It's getting nuts, guys. This is kind of a flagship headphone that nobody really seemed to talk about. Like, it just kind of flew under the radar. Nobody really mentioned it. And I think, you know, I know why. Granted, there's a price difference now, but I think back in the day when they were both $1,000, I think the HD 800, you know, sounds similar, but does a few things better than this. They're not super bassy. They are both very treble intense headphones. They both have a pretty big peak in the treble, and that comes across, you know, when you're listening to it. It's very crisp. Now, I think a lot of people, and I keep bringing this up and I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but it is a point that, you know, when new people come to the channel, I don't want them to mistake me saying one thing and they mistake it for meaning another. There is a difference between a treble spike and being a bright headphone and being a sibilant headphone. The best way that I've kind of honed down on describing what sibilance is that bright or that treble spike with the lack of detail. So you can have a big treble spike like the DT1990 does. That has a treble spike, but it also has a massive amount of detail in that spike. It isn't a lack of detail. It doesn't kind of gloss over the detail like other sibilant headphones do, like the another Hyphaman, the HE90 or HE9X, I think it's over there. That is a very sibilant headphone because, yes, it has a spike, but it also glosses over the detail and it just doesn't sound refined or quick. And this, it's not a sibilant headphone necessarily. I think a lot of people might mistake it for that, but I don't personally feel that it is. But it is a very bright headphone, and that's not going to be for everybody. You know, it's not for me. But there are some other really great aspects. Like I did a little bit of gaming over the weekend on this, and these are fantastic for gaming. But I think it's really going to come down to, you know, the old school versus the new school nowadays and the price ranges that these are coming in at. You know, because you have things like the 1990s and the Edition X's and the LCD2Cs and the Alex and you know, the HT660s. Those are all really, really, really good headphones. But I'm still interested in reviewing this. I mean, there's a lot to say about this headphone still. It's still a very good headphone in certain aspects, but like any headphone, it's gonna have its benefits and its drawbacks. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions of any of these. Again, I wanna bring up that Patreon link is down below. I really, really do appreciate you guys supporting me on there, because these videos, they take a long time to edit, like a long time. All right, so I think that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday, somewhere in that range. We'll see when I can get the next review up. All right, peace.